It was a day like any other. The sun shone, the birds sang, and the usual hum of activity filled Toronto Pearson International Airport. Then, the world shifted. A deafening roar split the air. A plume of black smoke erupted, painting a terrifying streak across the clear blue sky. Delta Flight 123, en route from Los Angeles to Toronto, was down. The news spread like wildfire. Panic surged through the airport, a ripple effect reaching every corner of the city and beyond. Families huddled around televisions, their faces etched with worry and disbelief. Emergency responders raced towards the disaster, sirens wailing, their faces grim, their minds racing, preparing for the worst. This was a catastrophe, a stark reminder of the razor-thin line between routine and tragedy. The question on everyone's mind was simple, yet terrifying. What happened to Delta Flight 123? Delta Flight 123 began its journey with the promise of uneventful travel. The aircraft, a Boeing 737-800, was scheduled to fly from the sunny city of Los Angeles to the vibrant metropolis of Toronto. The passengers, a mix of tourists, business travelers, and families, were all set for a smooth journey. Tourists eager to explore the bustling streets of Toronto settled into their seats. They chatted excitedly about their plans, flipping through travel guides and discussing must-see attractions. The anticipation of new adventures filled the cabin with a palpable energy. Business travelers, laptops open, prepared for upcoming meetings. They reviewed presentations, sent last-minute emails, and coordinated with colleagues. For them, this flight was a brief respite before diving back into the hustle and bustle of corporate life. Families buzzing with anticipation for reunions, shared snacks and laughter. Parents entertained their children with games and stories, while grandparents reminisced about past trips. The joy of togetherness was evident in every smile and every shared moment. The flight took off from sunny Los Angeles, soaring into the azure sky. The city below quickly became a patchwork of tiny buildings and roads, and soon, the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean stretched out beneath the plane. The journey seemed to be off to a perfect start. Hours passed in a blur of in-flight entertainment and quiet conversations. Passengers watched movies, read books, and dozed off, lulled by the gentle hum of the engines. Flight attendants moved through the aisles offering drinks and snacks, ensuring everyone was comfortable. As the Boeing 737-800 approached Canadian airspace, the first signs of trouble emerged. The sky, once clear and blue, began to fill with ominous clouds. The plane started to experience turbulence, jolting passengers awake and causing a ripple of concern. Air traffic control received a garbled transmission from the cockpit, the pilot's voice tight with tension. The message was unclear, but the urgency was unmistakable. Controllers immediately tried to re-establish communication, their faces etched with worry. Static crackled through the speakers, followed by a chilling silence. The once steady flow of information had been abruptly cut off, leaving everyone on the ground in a state of anxious uncertainty. What had happened to Delta 123? The radar screen, once displaying the steady progress of Flight 123, now showed a terrifying deviation, the plane veering sharply off course. Alarms blared, and the room was filled with the urgent chatter of controllers trying to make sense of the situation. Frantic calls to the cockpit remained unanswered. The silence was deafening, each passing second heightening the tension. Emergency protocols were activated and teams were mobilized to respond to the unfolding crisis. Delta 123 was in trouble, and time was running out. The fate of the passengers and crew hung in the balance, as everyone on board and on the ground braced for what was to come. Chaos reigned within the aircraft as the situation spiraled out of control. The once calm and orderly cabin was now a scene of utter pandemonium. Flight attendants, who had always been the epitome of composure, were now frantically trying to assist passengers, their faces betraying their own fears. The overhead bins rattled violently, and the lights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows across the terrified faces of those on board. Oxygen masks dropped from overhead compartments, a chilling reminder of the imminent danger. The sudden deployment of the masks added to the sense of dread, as passengers fumbled to secure them over their faces. The sound of labored breathing filled the cabin, each gasp a testament to the fear gripping everyone on board. The masks, meant to be a lifeline, now symbolized the thin thread by which their lives hung. The plane, once a symbol of safety and efficiency, was now a metal coffin plummeting towards the earth. The descent was rapid and uncontrolled, the aircraft shuddering violently as it lost altitude. Outside the windows, the sky was a blur of clouds and chaos, the ground below rushing up to meet them with terrifying speed. The once serene journey had turned into a nightmare, the plane's trajectory a grim reminder of their mortality. Passengers clung to their loved ones, whispering desperate prayers, their faces pale with fear. The bonds of family and friendship were their only solace in this moment of crisis. Some held hands tightly, their knuckles white with tension, while others closed their eyes, trying to block out the horror unfolding around them. The cabin was filled with a cacophony of sobs, prayers, and the occasional scream, each sound a testament to the collective terror. The roar of the engines, once a comforting hum, transformed into a deafening shriek. The mechanical symphony that had lulled passengers into a sense of security was now a harbinger of doom. The engines sputtered and groaned, struggling against the forces of nature and gravity. Smoke began to trail from the wings, adding to the growing sense of impending disaster. The once reliable machinery was now failing them, and the realization was a bitter pill to swallow. The ground, once a distant tapestry of green and gray, rushed towards them with alarming speed. From the windows, passengers could see the landscape below becoming clearer and more defined, a stark reminder of their impending fate. The once beautiful view was now a harrowing sight, the ground a relentless force drawing them closer. The cockpit view was even more terrifying, the pilot's instruments showing a rapid descent with no signs of recovery. The plane, buffeted by powerful winds, struggled to regain control. The storm outside was relentless, each gust of wind a brutal assault on the aircraft's stability. The pilots fought valiantly against the elements, their hands gripping the controls with white-knuckled determination. The plane shook and shuddered, each movement a reminder of the thin line between survival and disaster. The storm was an unforgiving adversary, and the plane's struggle was a desperate battle for life. Every jolt, every shudder sent shockwaves of terror through the cabin. The turbulence was relentless, each bump and drop a physical manifestation of the chaos outside. Passengers were thrown against their seats, their bodies jolted by the violent movements. The seatbelt signs flashed urgently, but the straps felt like flimsy barriers against the overwhelming force. The cabin was a maelstrom of fear and uncertainty, each second stretching into an eternity. The pilot, his voice strained but resolute, could be heard over the intercom, battling to regain control, fighting against the unforgiving pull of gravity. His words were a mix of technical commands and reassurances, a lifeline for the passengers clinging to hope. The cockpit was a scene of intense focus, the pilots working in unison to wrestle the plane back from the brink. Their training and experience were being tested to the limit, every decision a crucial step in the fight for survival. But it was too late. The descent was too rapid, the forces too great. The plane's trajectory was irreversible, the ground rushing up to meet them with terrifying finality. The realization dawned on everyone on board, a collective understanding of the inevitable. The final moments were a blur of fear and resignation, the passengers bracing for the impact they knew was coming. With a sickening crunch that reverberated through the air, Delta Flight 123 slammed into the ground just short of the runway at Toronto Pearson International Airport. The impact was catastrophic, the plane breaking apart as it skidded to a halt. The once proud aircraft was now a twisted wreck, a grim testament to the harrowing descent that had brought it down. The aftermath was a scene of devastation, the wreckage a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the thin line between safety and disaster. The impact, a deafening roar followed by an eerie silence, sent shockwaves through the surrounding area. It was a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity as the world held its breath, grappling with the sudden and violent disruption. The once serene landscape was now a scene of devastation, the tranquility shattered by the catastrophic event. The initial impact gave way to a scene of unimaginable chaos. Flames licked at the remnants of the aircraft, casting an eerie glow over the wreckage. The air was thick with smoke, and the acrid smell of burning fuel, making it difficult to breathe. People were running in all directions, some in search of loved ones, others simply trying to escape the inferno. Twisted metal, burning fuel, and the anguished cries of survivors painted a horrifying tableau. The scene was a nightmarish blend of destruction and despair, with the wreckage of the plane serving as a grim reminder of the fragility of life. Survivors, dazed and injured, stumbled through the debris, their faces etched with shock and disbelief. The emergency response was immediate and overwhelming. Within minutes, the wail of sirens filled the air as emergency vehicles raced to the scene. Firefighters, paramedics, and police officers sprang into action, their training kicking in as they worked to bring order to the chaos. Their presence was a beacon of hope amidst the devastation. Firefighters, paramedics, and police officers converged on the crash site, a symphony of sirens slicing through the smoke-filled air. Each responder had a role to play, and they moved with a sense of urgency and purpose. Firefighters battled the flames, paramedics tended to the injured, and police officers secured the area, ensuring that help could reach those in need. First responders, their faces grim but resolute, fought their way through the wreckage, their every move a testament to their training and courage. They navigated the twisted metal and burning debris, their focus unwavering as they worked to save lives. Each action was a race against time, a desperate effort to bring survivors to safety. They extinguished raging fires, triaged the injured, and searched desperately for survivors amidst the twisted metal and shattered glass. The scene was a flurry of activity, with responders working tirelessly to bring order to the chaos. Their efforts were a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Ambulances, their lights painting frantic streaks across the tarmac, ferried the injured to nearby hospitals. The paramedics worked with precision and care, their actions a lifeline for those caught in the disaster. Each trip to the hospital was a race against time, a desperate bid to save lives. The air hung heavy with the smell of jet fuel and the palpable weight of grief. Survivors and responders alike were enveloped in a somber atmosphere, the reality of the tragedy sinking in. The crash site was a place of mourning, a stark reminder of the lives lost and the families forever changed. As the dust settled and the initial shock subsided, the investigation began. What caused this tragedy? Investigators combed through the wreckage, searching for clues that could explain the disaster. Each piece of evidence was a potential key to understanding what went wrong, and could it have been prevented? The questions loomed large, casting a shadow over the scene. Investigators and experts debated the possible causes, each theory bringing with it a mix of hope and despair. The search for answers was just beginning, a journey that would take time and patience.